Monday will be the 7th of July. It is Saba. What is this Saba thing? For very many people who are alive today, they just found the word Saba. As they grew up, the word Saba has been there, the term Saba. But Saba happened some 35 years ago when a group of political activists came together and they said, you know, let's have a meeting. And there was maybe some importance to that particular date, maybe some importance to some of the grounds where they were going. For example, they were going to Kamukunji grounds and so on and so forth. One of the people who were core in the organization of that Saba in 1990 is Njeru Kathanga. He later went into parliament. He represented the people of Runyenjes. He was a secretary general for Dasili, the political party. He's been a political player. And now, he's here with us in the studio na amevalia ile kofia yake kama kofia ya kawaida. Mtumishi Njeru Kathanga.
Pole imechelewa dakika moja. Lakini mabarabara Nairobi yako hivyo. Kwa hivyo nieleweke na tuwasalimie watu wetu wa mjamboni.
Asante sana for joining us. Hatujambo sana. To welcome you to the conversation.
Thank you, sir.
Janet is going to give you the day's quote.
Yes.
She'll tell you who said what, and then let's see what your interpretation of those words would be.
Okay.
The person who said this quote, as I've said in the previous hours of the show, was the first female dean at the Faculty of Law at Makerere University. Her name is Sylvia Tamale. She's from Uganda. And she wrote a book called Decolonization and Afrofeminism. It was published in 2020.
Yes.
One of the quotes there, she said, we must decolonize not just the law, but the mind, the body, and desire.
Yeah.
Yes. What do you make of that?
Very easy that you cannot be a complete human person unless you are totally liberated in the mind, free and independent to do what it is that your ideas give you. And that is what she is saying. And the reason she is saying this is that law is said to be an ass. It can send you to a roundabout and be there for a long time. And what she is saying is this: change that attitude also so that things are definite.
Change that attitude so that things are definite is something we'll be saying for who said that at some point here.
Yeah.
Change your attitude so that things are definite.
Correct.
That's good.
Remove the grays. Mtumishi, I know you like to be called Mtumishi. Njeru Kathanga. Why Mtumishi?
Well, two things. Is that if you have been given a job by the people, you cannot be the honored person. They have employed you. You are their servant. So serve them. In Kiswahili, servant simply means mtumishi. You know, in fact, you understand mtumishi or understand service if you are the servant to a slave. You know, and most Kenyans, according to me, are economic slaves. And it is good to serve them painfully so that they can liberate themselves also economically.
Wow.
Gems are just dropped.
Gems are just, I'm just taking notes. We're not fully liberated, are you?
No, we're not.
Like, even when you sparked, that spark that took you to Kamkunji, that spark that said Saba, that spark that led to the repeal of Section 2A. I'm sure when you were doing that, you were like, oh, we're liberating ourselves.
Liberating ourselves.
We reflect 35 years later. Where are we on the spectrum of liberation?
The first thing I would like to remind Kenyans is that Saba did not just happen.
Yeah.
You know, we prepared for it for a long time. In fact, I would like to say that Saba is reflective of what Mwalimu Julius Nyerere and his people in Tanzania were doing around 1956, 1957. You know, because that is where Saba was mooted first. And so when we were thinking about this nation, we were saying two things. First, we must have a liberating party because KANU has become oppressive. And that liberating party should again reflect the determination of the ANC. And so we chose to have a party called Kenya National Congress, you know, to have that spirit, including of Umkhonto Sizwe. So that is in 1988. And why 1988? Because 1988 was the tail end of the Mwakenya arrests. And that is the year that Moi decided to dissolve parliament. I think that was in March 1988. And so we started preparing for elections. But we knew that we were not going to be included in those elections because they had marked us negatively, you know, and so we prepared John Janyona to be the Speaker of the National Assembly, you know, that time after the elections, which was very, very greatly opposed by several characters who need not be mentioned here. And so we continued. And in that election, which was a Mlolongo election, several characters known in this country, famous then, rich executives, were chopped off by Moi, you know, including Kennedy Stanley and Njindo Matiba, who, you know, who at some point was Moi's English teacher. You know, in State House.
Give people context. There are people who've never heard of a Mlolongo election. They don't know what that is.
Oh, Mlolongo.
The election did not happen in Mlolongo.
No.
It was via
Mlolongo election was that I think democratic processes appeared to be biting Moi somehow, because people would make decisions which he did not want himself. And therefore, he decided that Q voting would be the best for him, because he changed numbers, you know, the voters' numbers. The shortest lines are the ones that won. The longest were dismissed.
Right.
That is what we call the Mlolongo, the Q.
Yes, for context,
voting.
you would stand behind your candidate, if I'm not wrong, right?
Stand behind your candidate.
So Mariam is running for women rep. You're
Correct.
behind
Yes.
your
Stand behind, you know, and the people come counting, you know, and when they are at 30, they say 3,000 and so forth, you know, and so he says, so 3,200, you know, the longest ones at 3,000 was 42, you know, and so forth, you know. That is how Kenneth Matiba was removed from, and not only that, very many of them.
Just before you go into that,
Yes.
I wanted to start from your time pushing for JM Kariuki, not pushing, resistance to protest against JM Kariuki's death.
I was a very young man.
Yes.
You were Gen Z.
Please, just
that time I was actually a Gen Z.
You are Gen Z, yes.
Kabisa, you know, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 years. And, you know, what happened is that I had been licensed by the government of Kenya to be a professional hunter. And Matthew Sogutu, then, who was the Minister for Foreign Affairs, and JM Kariuki was his assistant minister, you know, and because I would go to various blocks hunting, you know, JM approached me and he wanted some few items, you know, and I was able to bring him the items. This house here called the International Life House, third time, 8th floor, and some characters whose business was to buy those things, gemstones and so forth and so forth. And so before I sent these things to them, I asked GM to select them, the first ones, you know. He selected his, yes, you know, and we started a relationship. And so when Josiah Mwangi Kariuki was assassinated, you know, that same night he was picked from this place, you know, Hilton Hotel. We were supposed to have a few things the next day, and therefore they reported that the man had disappeared somehow, and his wives, including Terry Kariuki, didn't know where he was, you know. And so now I got very worried myself, because for the last or the previous 2-3 weeks, the man had been complaining that people are following him. And we thought that time that they were interested in knowing maybe what kind of people he was trying to mobilize for his political programs, you know. But we never thought that somebody was trying to shorten his life. And so when it was confirmed that JM had been murdered, I got very annoyed. And in the officers' mess of Nanyuki, I reacted. And that reaction was taken very badly. And I was picked later on the next day or 2 days later by somebody called Peter or Derry, involved with the Ignatius. Ignatius was the DCI, Director of Criminal Investigations. That is where we started. But
sorry, I just want to give I know some of our listeners and our viewers don't have context. You are in the military at this time.
I was a captain in the Air Force.
A captain in
the Air Force.
Which year was this?
In the UK, 1975.
1975.
Yes, 1975. At that time I was a GNC, complete GNC. Much younger than you, I think.
Yes.
But it worked in this sense that what older generations stand for is to see a stabilized nation, peaceful, that nobody is itching to do things. But the young people, and that is, I think, the point that we are making during this season, the young people are the creators of ideas. They are actually the main discoverers and pioneers. Those characters are what is this? The heartbeat of a nation as regards change, because they say what it is that they want, they push for what it is they want, but the old people kind of resist it. In fact, let me tell you, if the old people continue to resist about change, they create a timing nation. Nations don't move, and you can only get what ideas that you need to move your nation with from the young people. And so what I'm saying is this: if Kenyatta those days was listening to us, Jomo Kenyatta, we fought for this nation. Physically, you are sent to the Budus, the bushes, to fight for your country, determined about winning. It is in those bushes that you are supposed to be working out initiative to beat the enemy, right? It doesn't come from State House. It does not come from the minister. The minister is simply there taking his coffee and asking generals, mumefikisha wapi? But we are supposed to be thinking about how to save the nation. Today, Kenya has become extremely famous for many, many things and on many fronts. And when you go out there, everybody is saying, oh, are you from Kenya? Whether you are from Sudan or Nigeria, whatever, they're asking today. Zamani it was, do you come from Nigeria? Or are you from South Africa? No. But today it is, are you from Kenya? Because everybody wants to be associated. If you are the president of the Republic of Kenya, and you go out there and everybody is dismissing your country because of its primitivity and backwardness, how would you feel? And that is the pride that I think I want to talk about here. During this commemoration of the Saba, I am asking every leader, wherever he is, prefect in the classroom, the president of the republic, the supervisor in building constructions, to remember that Kenya's pride is on your hands. It is you to bring out the best house built in this country. It is you to see to it that every mwananchi feels liberated and free and independent, and that you are proud to be the leader of this nation that is becoming #1 in Africa. It is not #1 because you are. It is #1 because we are, And therefore, the young person, your son, your daughter, telling you, Daddy, we want to do A, B, and C. Please listen, don't dismiss. You are not the preserver of every knowledge that this nation has. That is simply what we are supposed to be thinking about. And therefore, Saba of 1990 was mooted by us as Moi arrested the last pharaohs who he brought to Naivasha and to committee. And he announced the elections. And when he announced the elections, we said, now, this man doesn't require pushing the way we have been thinking. demonstrating all over the place. There is a time that people should be able to sit, retreat a bit and reflect about what the dictator wants and what it is that the people want. What is it that I can personally do and what is it in our collective be able to do? And so we thought about it. And we said, now that Kenya has been a de jure one-party state, all we need to do is take a de facto status, position, and announce another political party. And now, so that Moi will be fighting a political party, not individuals like Kathanga and Anyona.
All right. Please pause them, Tumishi, on that point, because we really want to continue that birth of Saba Saba, talking about sort of how we see it in comparison to the Gen Z-led movement,
yes,
and how we hope to commemorate it this coming Monday. You know, I'm just taking in what he said. Right. I'm like, it would be such a disservice if he didn't do an audiobook and talk about the history of this country. But we're going into a break. It's coming up to 8:30. We'll continue after the break and just reflect and think more about Saba Saba 35 years on as we continue our conversation. We'll be right back. He seems very pleased when you said that.
Yeah, good to hear.
Resonated.
Connected.
I like they still mic the one on YouTube. I said, silence, everyone. Wise man full of wisdom in the house.
Yes.
Silence in class.
Silence in the classroom. I think it's, Tumishi has just started so candidly. We should start calling these politicians bluff. Eric, Janet, and Mariam, call them Tumishi anytime they come to your studio for conversations.
Aki.
Charles Ndungo has said that. Yeah, so I think we'll continue the conversation, just sampling some feedback. I think a lot of people are appreciating this context and charting that path to where we find ourselves coming Monday.
Tumishi Njeru Kathanga is a former member of parliament. He has done very many things in this country, an opposition figure and rabble-rouser. And he's telling us he's among those who organized the first Saba Saba rally on the 7th of July 1990, but it was not birthed on that day or the day before or the week prior. You've taken us all the way back up to even 1988,
yes,
when there was that election, and it was a queue election, queue voting.
Yes.
People stand behind their favorite candidate, but then KANU would decide who the KANU's favorite candidate would be declared winner.
Yes.
And people be damned.
Yes.
But then now you have decided that how we're going to push back to the issue of multipartyism is by forming a political party, calling it the Kenya National Congress, and going out there in the public and saying, so we have another political party.
Correct.
But the law did not allow you to have another political party.
Yes. Yes, and you see, that is the thing. First of all, remember, when KANU became a de jure one-party state, they proposed it sometimes in 1982, I think, June 9th or something like that. And it only took about 18 minutes, you know, for them to change that constitution. You know, it's ridiculous. And therefore, why would we not take about a year and campaign for KNC even without thinking about the constitution? I mean, the president and his government were not following any law. They had created a bush nation. And therefore, we belong to that bush. We wanted to walk out of that bush, you know. And the only way we could walk out of that bush is for us to feel that we were contributing enough in democratizing this nation. And democratizing this nation was to make sure that people associated themselves according to the thoughts they were building. In fact, that same constitution was talking about the freedom of association, which KANU was kind of saying, no, you can associate in everything else, basketball, football, and what, but not politics. You know why? That was limiting. And therefore, we decided that we were going to form the political party. You know, we knew it was unconstitutional, but we also knew that that constitution was oppressive, because why would it want to isolate all other Kenyans but KANU members? And therefore, we announced, or rather said, that we are going to form the political party Kenya National Congress, and we developed what we called the Manifesto for Change. What is it that we were going to do about this change? So we wrote that Manifesto for Change, and we started seeing people and developing a constitution for that party.
Right.
And so a few people we met. One was Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, a veteran in our circle. and we told him what we were thinking. And Jaramogi Oginga Odinga told us now, and of course you remember Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, John Janyona and some of us, also in 1982 tried to form another political party called the Kenya African Socialist Alliance, which was nipped in the bud by the government arresting George Anyona, restricting Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, and for some of us, because they had just opened the Nyayo House, were brought to Nyayo House for further investigations or whatever it is, and they discovered that we had just come from prison. So, Kathanga, do you want to go to prison again? I said, if you want to send me back to prison, you can, but I did not participate in what you are saying, And so they said, actually, that is how we got saved. Listen.
You'd come from prison because of your unruly conduct after JM's death.
Yes.
In the mess.
They released me on 18th of January 1980.
And then in 1980.
And something interesting, this ring here, which reminds me of it, this ring was for a wedding in 1975. They arrested me 3 weeks just before the wedding. And this girl had to wait for 6 years to get married. But that was our cross. We followed it. Now, what I'm saying is this. All these things put together provoke the spirit and the soul of a human person to say things must change. And therefore, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga told us, what you do, I support you, but you are going to be arrested by Moi. Now what you do is go to Bildad Kagia and tell him what you have told me. And when you come back, go to Achengoneko and Lukobok. Share with them what it is that you want. And when we had done that, some of them declined. Kagia gave us 12 months to mobilize people. Jaramogi said he was with us. And in the end, he said, now what we do is that you go do it. We know you are going to be arrested. We shall fight for your release. So we went to start. And we went to Simeon Nyachai's office, And
what was he then?
Because Simeon Nyachai was the chief secretary. He had just been kicked out of government. They were so bitter. They came to this nation. If you go to the nation of 1988, you will see that Nyachai was buying 2-3 pages to talk about the ills of Daniel Tony-Teacher Arap Moi.
Simeon Nyachai.
Simeon Nyachai. So we went to him. And Simeon said, okay, I support you. But I'll give you somebody who can be able to support you fully. And so he called Kenneth Matiba. I'm with George Anyona here and Njeru Kathanga. Please listen to him. They are talking about the same things that you and I are talking about. So that is how we started with Kenneth Matiba. And so Saba did not start by the announcement. The announcement of Saba was done on 23rd, I think, 23rd of April or 23rd of May, 1990, But Saba and the KNC were in our mind since 1988.
Why did you pick that date? Why the 7th of July?
This way. I have said this. First of all, the name Kenya National Congress was going to be announced on the 1st of June, 1990. We were going to announce the formation of the political party when all the documents were ready by the 7th. We took 7 because Tanzania, before us, had organized themselves in 1957 around Saba, and we wanted to link ourselves to that spirit of liberation. So, like I said, linking KNC to ANC and linking the Kenyan struggle to the Tanzanian struggle of 1950s. And we said, let's go. Now, so Saba was going to give us an opportunity to develop the documents from the day we announced multi-party now, which was announced by Matiba and Rubia. And so that time we were going to be ready to talk to Kenyans at Kamukunji about what our program was and what it is that we wanted. Dictators fight shandos, And so every time a dictator, just like a wild dog, seeing any object moving thinks there is meat there. And so when we announced those things, then Moi decided to post askaris to us, even outside our homes. The pharaohs, poor pharaohs, would sleep there the whole night, waiting to see what it is that we were doing. In fact, in one of the public rallies, he asked, huyu Anyona na Kathango, saa 10 usiku saa yote wanatoka wapi? Na nilikuwa najiuliza, Moi mwenyewe anatuona akiwa wapi? He was loitering just like us.
He was loitering like us.
Yeah, so the issue is this, that we have to address dictators in the right manner. Otherwise, they will never understand. You know, today we are talking about this Saba Saba, commemoration of this Saba Saba. On Saba Saba Day, or before Saba Saba, we established 3 offices. One office, which was my office, was in Magezo Chambers. I had the basement and 3 floors, the three offices upstairs. Then I opened another one at Musa House. Musa House is next to Missing Lane, you know, Palechinas, you're going to Gekomba, you know. And we put there an observatory. You know, a group would be observing Kamukunji because that's where we were going to be and how, therefore, we were going to do this. And people are asking, so how were you able to coordinate? We opened 26 pubs in this city.
Pubs?
Yes, 26 pubs, you know, where people would come to hear the newest news about Moi and his government. And so, Dadora, Uruma, Zimmerman, Kona, Kawangware, this place called Kangemi, those places, you know.
Were they licensed pubs?
Licensed,
like
yes.
proper operating pub?
Proper operating pubs. Pahali tunachoma nyama na kula samaki na kunywa soup ya mbuzi na vichwa.
Are any of them still in existence today?
Well, the special branch closed many of them because they knew them.
They were like,
The last one was Mutugi Bar at Mdagoret Corner, you know, which we wanted because that's where we were arrested. We wanted to make it some kind of a monument, you know, for the movement. And they went there and talked to Kangari, the owner of the house, and said, never let those characters back here, you know. And they changed the name from Mutugi, which was associated now with us, to Matigari, you know. And so we lost it.
You know, I'm just looking for our listeners on Nation FM. I'm just looking at the scenes showcasing highlights of Saba Saba.
Yes.
You see on your screens. I'm wondering, Tumishi, what comes to mind when you see everything you're saying is now being lived out on our screens?
Yes.
And there was just a moment there when I saw the security agencies, and it's just wildly similar to what we're seeing today.
Yeah, those running battles.
The running battles.
By the way, I see this, but I want to tell Kenyans that this day was not the Saba Saba day. I have seen it repeated and shown everywhere. This is 16th of November 1991, when the people led by Jaramogi Oginga Odinga were going to be announcing what Ford was going to do in this country, right? And the people that you see are led also by a pickup, a green pickup,
yes,
where Shikuku and Orengo and some 2-3 others are. That pickup was actually given to them by a friend of ours called Kimani Rugendo. And Kimani Rugendo was the man here, Nairobi. So you got a pickup for them to be able to go to Kamukunji. Kimani Rugendo's name has never appeared anywhere. I think this is the first time I'm mentioning it.
Wow.
You know, and he is the one that gave that pickup. Now,
Rugendo is a businessman.
Businessman. He was a Nairobi politician those days. So now, on the Saba Saba day, these battles were not there. You know,
on the first Saba Saba.
The battles on Kamukunji were not there. The battles came later. You did not see huge crowds moving to because we were stealth. We brought in about 100 buses from across Kenya. Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Meru, you know, all of them coming. Right. And they were going to be dropped in the city and start naturally going and walking to Kamukunji so that they are not identified, you know. And on Kamukunji ground, we put in an 11-side football team za vijana, ile mipira ya makaratasi, you know, so that they could attract. And Ngodo Kariuki, Kariuki Gavitu, myself and John Janyona went to the ground where we were disrupted by a man called Superintendent Cheriot from Buruburu Police Station. That man is the one that came there to say no activities in Kamukunji. By that time, 12:30, we had about maybe 10,000 or so people in Kamukunji.
What are they doing? Watching the football match?
Because they knew.
Yes.
They knew that we were going to watch
organizing.
the
Right.
football match.
Organizing.
That is organized.
Right? And so they came and said, no activity here, not even this football. You know, and that is where Furu started. You know, people say, no, we are watching this. You know,
ball too.
tumekuja kuona mpira alafu mnatusumbua. You know, then it started there. And so the movement that was on Saba Saba Day started from Kamukunji to town, but not from town to Kamukunji. Right? That is the difference between then and these meetings and November.
I see.
All right?
Okay.
10,000 people.
About
left
10,000 came
Kunji,
to watch football.
coming towards now town.
Yeah,
after you
coming
disrupted.
towards town.
Yeah.
And the police now started obstructing them by the canisters, shootings. They did not shoot people here, but they shot people who are walking now from Kawangware, from Kangemi, from Githurai. Those are the people now they started shooting so that they don't come to the city.
It's very
It's
eerily.
very similar to what has been happening.
Exactly.
Oh
It's
my
the
good
same
Lord.
book.
Yeah.
It's the
The
same
script.
book.
Yeah.
It's the
Remember, and we want to remind the police also, you know, because they forget many times. You know, most of the police who have retired from the forces, eaten by those emotions, you know, simply wither away in the villages because nobody wants to associate with them. It is actually good for a young policeman to remember that you are picked by the government to simply protect them, to rule over your families, and to protect the rich because you are nothing but an arrow for them. And from that family where you have come from, they go arresting your brothers and your sisters because they appear poor, and so that they are also restrained from causing problems in the established businesses and discomfort to the rich. Why don't you want to remember that 75,000 of the soldiers in this country are also represented by 75,000 prisoners in our country? And those of you who are Askaris know that your brothers are the ones in prison. When you are off, you go to committee to see them, and you are not able to think reasonably and logically that the same people you are protecting are in fact the enemy of your family, you know. And you know what? When we are talking about Saba Saba, you are talking about freeing your friends from that suffering. And the president and his government know for sure that he wants you around the State House. He wants you at every corner that he's going to visit, because your brothers who have been denied of their livelihoods will be waiting either for handout, or if not, somebody to give them some little thing to eat, you know, and he doesn't want to be disturbed. So the Saba Saba, therefore, of 1990 was aiming at reducing that suffering by introducing programs that would be able to alleviate the suffering of the people. Unfortunately, like I said, dictators in Kenya and everywhere want to nip all that so that they remain in comfort.
Just in the spirit of talking about organized,
Yes.
a lot of what the Gen Z-led protests have been are tribeless and leaderless. And we've asked this to a lot of people who've come on the show. Do you think that's some kind of being organized, or would you say, no, it's time that perhaps young people organize in this way.
There is a problem in Kenyan society today. We must remember that the parents of these young people were denied interaction by the dictator Moi, which means that for all the time that Moi ruled this nation, you know, these characters were totally segregated and isolated from the political action. And most of them were introduced into drama festivals, music festivals, and waiting for Moi on the streets and clapping for them. And Moi would carry bags of money that he would distribute to them. That is the lost generation. And those are the fathers and mothers of the children that we see here. They were never instructed or guided on what nationhood is. In fact, they know zero about history, because also the curriculum was changed, where we will be talking right about history and political sciences in the universities. They introduced what they call government. And government number one was Moi and his ministers. You know, not about thinking about the art and the craft of state. And so they were denied. Now, these children who are now on the streets are saying they are leaderless because they think the leaders are the problem. They are saying they are partyless because political parties have been nonsense in this country. They are saying all that. And the reason they are saying that is because they think they can be able to move mountains without being identified with a certain leader. And that is where they are wrong. And I want to ask them, those that are watching me, is that everywhere you are going to be more than one, you must have a leader. And that leader in Kiswahili, in Arabic, and in every language is called Amil. Amil means there is somebody that is going to be reacting or answering to a certain question, or if you like, challenge on your behalf. Amil. And so, tunaposema amiri mkuu katika jeshi is the person that you can actually talk to. We are talking about a meal when you are two, is that you are walking together and somebody says, mimi ningetaka kusikia mambo fulani. There is an amir between you and you know who it is. That is the person to talk. That is how you get respected. If you are going to be a group, then you are just a simple mob that has got no idea about what to do. You follow what is announced. Who announces? Who announces? Maybe it is the special branch that is announcing what you should do, and you follow it. And when you follow it, my friends, you ditch yourself into big pits. You must have a leadership that is going to direct you.
How do they identify that leader?
Yeah.
How do they pick a leader?
Oh, but let me tell you, they are the leaders. I don't want to mention them here. They are the leaders. Only that they were hiding. Some characters would come even to this nation and to everywhere else talking about, we are not. So who is he talking about? As what? Those are the leaders, you know? But when they go out there, they tell their followers, say that we are leaderless. What have those leaders done? They have been bought out. And some of them are actually bedfellows with your oppressors today. And maybe if you are going to be coordinated by the same characters, then you are doomed.
Which is exactly what they were saying, that they were fearing.
Yes.
They were fearing that by identifying a leader, then the leader is easily picked out, the leader is easily bought out, and then you are left to start from scratch.
Yeah, which means they have no resolve. Because one of the things that a movement should have is a determination. And that determination is hinged on some belief. If the leaders, they believe that they have as a movement, then we are not going to be expecting they are going to be bought. We have been around, my brother. We have been around for very many years. Many people have tried to change Kathanga's spirit with little money. There is no money that is not small. Because you see, whether you are given 10 million, 20 million, 100 million, the Pharaoh still goes crabbling for more. Right. Why? You know, you buy a shoe of 250,000. Some of these Pharaohs, you know them. You know, a watch of about 4 million. For what?
Yep.
Right? And now you see what you are saying is this. Then, because of that money, you sell your nation, you betray your conscience, you betray your movement, and in the end, that money is no more. I'll give them an example.
Okay. Although we have a minute to time, Mariam, you look like you wanted to ask something.
Such an interesting, Njeru, before we let you go,
Yeah.
how do we organize in an age of state surveillance? It existed when you were organizing, it exists now, just very different.
Yes, organization depends on the generation. What is the generation thinking about? If I was in this generation and I am thinking about changing, I will not think about leadership. You know, because the minute you mix them, some of the people coming into movements are thinking about how they can capitalize on them to become presidents. They are thinking that we can support the Gen Zs so that we are seen with them, etc., etc. Such characters should be dismissed. In fact, let me tell you, I see people from the mountain, people from the western, people from each one of them talking about Gen Z, Gen Z, Gen Z. Those characters are founded from the same bowl. You are either Kenyatta direct or taken by Moi, who was given by Kenyatta leadership, or you are from Kebaki's, what have you. All of them, either political characters, prodigal sons from those leaders, or public administration. And all of them want to show that they are with the Gen Zs. Before you close, I say this, that every time there is an election coming, those characters split themselves in two. They know what they want. They have got joint conspiracies to make sure they confuse the nation, so that those that are in government are opposed by those that they want to oppose them. So that each of them, mukienda mushinde, the next thing is that you include all of them in the same government. That is what is happening now, and that is what our Gen Zs should discover.
As we conclude, look at what's on the image on the screen right now. That senior police officer. Maybe Philip, if you can just rewind a little bit, see if you can identify him. Just rewind a little bit, Philip, into when the cop is talking to that gentleman whom they had arrested.
Okay, maybe we can restart. Restart the clip. Yeah.
That appears to be Japheth Koome.
Wow. Okay, we have to play the clip from the top again. Phil, please. Yes.
And Njeru could confirm if we are just able to.
Who are you saying? The man that is holding
the senior cop who was there. Just
it's coming just now because I think I saw this ending.
Yes.
This pockets of history.
That, if indeed it is, then wow.
Yes.
Okay.
That one.
Yeah, he's going to come and talk to this one.
That is your friend. Your friend, the Koome you are talking about. This one.
Yes.
Yeah? He appears to be a superintendent.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, what I'm wondering, is this Mato? Who is this man?
The one in
the one in the suit.
Yeah, the civilian who's being arrested now. And Koome appears to be talking to him, telling him something about,
Yeah, yes.
Having a reasoned conversation.
It's definitely more progress than what we see today. This kind of...
and you will not be created into a leader in this country unless you have got this history. You know? That you are known from the beginning, that you are Sandist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tumishi Njeru Kathanga has been our guest. Ngoge is saying, extend time for Njeru and delay mpaka 10.
Yeah.
Njeru, you'll
Rudy
come.
Monday.
Please
You
come
will
back.
come.
Please come back.
Yes, on Monday we'll have a full conversation here, a micro ground, again, just looking back into Saba, what it means, what it meant then, what it means today, what it should mean going forward. Should we have it as, one of those days? Remember, we had a Shikamaika here who said some of these days
There should be
should
holidays.
actually now be properly marked officially. It's 9 a.m. We're going to have a different conversation. Keep it here for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.